Today Motorola presented the Moto E. And in this case, it's not technology or specifications or whatever what's interesting, but the price. Because it's just, at least here in Germany, just 119 euros without any contract. And that's very cheap for getting a very solid real Android phone, and especially concerned to the display quality. I'm coming to this later on, but just let me show you. If I'm trying to wind this device, you won't see any black dots where the display glass is pressing down on the panel. So it's really very solid. And especially I like that curved back, because this is resting really great in your palm with just 65 millimeters in the width. And with it, what's presenting your personal subjective view of how compact or how large is a phone. So that's, as you can see with my fingers, and I don't have a big hand, it's really no problem to hold it in your hand. By the way, we have 125 millimeters in length, and thickness is very different, because on the lower end we have around about 8.4 millimeters. On the thickest points, somewhere here in the mid, it's about 12.1 millimeters. Mostly it's about 10 millimeters. So it's not very thin, and with 142 grams, it's not very light. But on the other hand, as it's resting great, and because your fingers have a good grip on the back, I hope you can hear this. So very solid, very great feeling, very ergonomically. I really love it. And as I promised, coming to the display. First of all, it's IPS. So most of you will know this from, for example, from the iPhone, meaning we have a very great viewing angle. So even from very extreme angles of viewing, you have a good viewing quality. And from the sizes, it's 45 by 95 millimeters, having a diagonal of 4.3 inches. But as you can see down here, we have, again, like on the Moto G and Moto X before, those on-screen buttons. So if you choose, or let's go, for example, into the browser where this is black totally. So this is the size you have net left for your content. And then we are talking about 4.06 or around about 4.1 inches. Nevertheless, if you take these sizes and dimensions and compare it to the price, I'm coming to just 2.52 cent per square millimeter. So meaning that ratio of the price and the size of the display is almost 200% above the average, 192 to be precise. So you're getting almost 3 times more display size for your money than on regular phones, meaning the last 12 months, all the phones I've tested and reviewed in the last 12 months compared to this, it's almost 3 times more than you're getting there. And coming to the resolution, it's 540 by 960 pixels. And let me show you this app launcher here, and going a little bit closer so that you can see these texts over here are really very tiny, believe me. But nevertheless, I hope you can see as clear as I can, because it's really sharp. Even if we're just talking about 256 ppi, that's not a lot compared to the absolute average. But again, let's compare it to the price, and we're coming to just 0.46 euro cent per ppi. So again, that ratio of ppi, of sharpness, compared to the price is again 186% above the average. So you're getting almost 2 times more, 3 times more, because 178, 87 above the average, sorry. So I'm just confused by myself. So again, you're coming up to 3 times more sharpness for your money than regular. Even on the Moto G, for example, if you take this, it was again just 160% above the average, and the Moto X was 21% above the average compared to the PPI per price. As you know, Moto G costing 169, but having 720 by 1280 pixels, and the Moto X again 720 by 1280 pixels, but costing 349 because it has LTE and whatever you want to, you know. By the way, Moto G is getting a bigger brother too, so it's called Moto G 4G LTE. So as you can imagine with that name, it has then LTE on board, and that shall be available in the beginning of July for 199. So 169 without, 30 euros more, you're getting LTE. That's a fair price. But coming back to the Moto E with 119 euros, that doesn't have LTE, not even dual cell HSPA. So meaning in UMTS or 3G nets, you will have just a plain regular download rate of up to 21 megabits per second. That's, I guess, for the target group more than enough. You don't have that extreme power, but I guess those people will not need that. Again, we have a Snapdragon 200 processor that's dual core, 2 cores of 1.2 gigahertz, 1 gigabyte RAM. Of course, it's not the new record or whatever, but on the other hand, again, compared to 190 euros, I guess this is quite enough for the target group, especially because when I'm showing you this, you can rip off the back as you have seen, but the battery is again fixed, built in like on the Moto G and Moto X before. Now it has 1980 milliampere hours, and if you compare this capacity to the display size, and the display consumes the most power, of course, this ratio is 4% above the average. So I guess we have to wait for the final device, and then I will test it, of course, and review it. But I guess this will run quite long because we have that just small, tiny Snapdragon 200 processor, quite some big battery capacity that should stay for quite a long time. I hope so. And especially I wanted to show you this over here. Yes, that's something new. The Moto G and the Moto X don't have a slot for SD card, and as you can see here, the Moto E has. The card is mine, that's not coming just with the Moto E, but you can plug in up to SD cards up to 32 gigabyte. On the other hand, unfortunately, you might imagine that Motorola is downsizing the internal memory. As you know, from the Moto G, we have two versions with 8 and 16 gigabyte internal memory, no SD card. On the Moto X, we have 16 or 32 gigabyte in some countries, no SD card. Here we have an SD card, but unfortunately just 4 gigabyte internal memory. And that's, if you compare, let's go here in the settings, memory, you can see here free memory. After I plugged on the device and actualized all the pre-installed apps, we just have 1.78 gigabyte left. That's a net free memory size, let's say 1.8 gigabyte. That's the way the value you have to calculate with. And on that point, this point, all ambitionized gamers will say no way, because my game is more than 2 gigabyte big, so I can't install it on this device. You can push apps to the SD card, of course. But as you know, some apps won't work on the SD card because on performance reasons, or because they are close to the system and need to be stored into the internal memory. So this is something for entrants, low-level users who say, I need a phone and text messages and WhatsApp and maybe some games like Angry Birds or Cut the Rope, which have some 15 megabytes or 50 up to 50 megabyte. That's quite okay, even if you just have that small memory of 1.8 gigabyte internal, and you can move some apps to the SD card. That's quite great, but not for some people who want to have more or bigger or graphic ambitionalized games or whatever. By the way, when I'm talking about multimedia, the camera on the back side is shooting photos with 5 megapixels. That's very, very well compared to the price. And videos are shot with 864 by 480 pixels. That's nothing compared to full HD on high-priced, or the Moto X, for example, has full HD videos too. But again, Moto X 349 and is cheap already, and this one 119. So I guess it's quite okay for the target group, meaning everyone who just wants a good small phone but doesn't need that big playing things like on the upper classes and middle classes. So, well, I hope that's enough for a first impression of the Motorola Moto E. Just like I've said a dozen times before, 119 euros without any contract, at least here in Germany. And it shall be available from the beginning of June, so June the 2nd here in Germany, depending on the market, of course, as you know that. I hope I could help you a little bit on your own decision how to find this Moto E. If you like my video, please think of subscribing to my channel and recommend it. I say thanks in advance. Take care.